15 degrees outside. Not bad, actually. And I am going to do a podcast. Bit weird. Anyway, so I'm driving. I can't hold my phone. I can't use my phone. So it's going to be sitting there. I'm not going to look at anything. So if there's a moderator in the group, clap, 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 you know, do the slaps and all that stuff. But I'm just going to talk about my preparation and what it means to me to do this walk. So, hey, Miss Paula, how you going? So anyway, I've got to go. So Miss Paula, I'm doing podcast Dora today. So you're the first one to listen. So you're a moderator. So if you see anyone, slap, 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 slap. You can hear me, I'm thinking. Yep. Okay, cool. All right, let's go. Oh, lights off. Oh my gosh, it is dark, dark, dark. My windows are all iced up. My gosh, everything's iced up because it is, yeah, not even 5 a.m. yet. I've got to meet my friends at 6 a.m. at a designated spot, and then we're all piling into her car and going to the start line at Majumba, I think you call that. Majimba, and then we are walking 30 kilometres, which is about 18 miles for people in the Northern Hemisphere. My gosh, we are, like, it's like ice all over the windscreen. No, not really, it's just foggy. So yeah, not used to being up this early, obviously. Definitely not driving in it, anyway, that's for sure. But look, thanks for listening, guys. Look, I know a lot of people won't listen because it's a podcast and you can only see my sky roof at the moment. Actually, I'll open the sky roof because there's nothing, you can't see anything. Maybe the lights. So we're driving from where I live in Redcliffe. We're driving an hour up to Mooloolaba, where I'm leaving my car, because that's the end of the walk. So we walk from Majimba to Mooloolaba. And normally, if you just put it in Google Maps, it's only about 18, it only says it's only 18 kilometres, so it's not that far. But if you walk along the water, as in on the sand, it's a lot longer. So it's about 31 k's, they said. So if you go look at my community post, if you're interested, there's a bit of a write-up, a spiel that was written by Coastrek, the company that organised the walk. And it tells you, there's a map also on where I'm walking. Oh my gosh, I'm really fogging up. I could put the early demisters on, but you wouldn't be able to hear me. And then we just get some natural air in the car. It has a write-up on, you know, where we're walking. And they're selling it like a bit of a tourist walk too. Like, we're walking past, you know, very famous beaches on the Sunshine Coast, and some really nice bits actually. There's a nice bit when we first start off it's called Twin Waters Resort, and there's a really nice little, when you walk around near the resort, there's a nice little bridge. Oh my gosh, it's so nice. And that's a place that I'm definitely going to go live and show you. I am going to go live and show you the start. So that's at 7 a.m, which will probably be about 2 hours actually. Oh my gosh, I'll be walking in 2 hours. So, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I think you all guys know that, you know, if you've been following me or watching all my lives, because there's a whole playlist of walking 30 Ks. That's my playlist. And yeah, there's a lot of videos. I think there's about 25 videos in there from walking and training from the last month. So that's not that bad, I think. Some days it was 2 lives. Some days it was 7 lives because I couldn't get the live working. So that was funny. Okay, maybe I do need to put the demister on because we are misting up in here. So, what does this mean to me, this walk? Oh my gosh, this means so much to me, this walk. Oops. I'm sure you can hear me. Maybe not with the demister on, that's why I turned it off. So this walk, what does it mean to me? Well, it means a lot to me personally. And I always kind of say, it's not just for my friend Esther. I'll talk about Esther. If you haven't been following the story, I'll tell you about Esther. But this walk is for mental health. We are raising money for a charity called Beyond Blue in Australia, which do programs for mental health. And so in that is the awareness of mental health, because obviously we all play a part in that, because let's face it, our own mental health is important, right? I mean, we try to fill everyone else's cup up, but got to remember that our own mental health is really important. So yeah, and look, that's another story. But my big why is, if I had to do a little spiel, it'd be, my why is I'm walking from my friend Esther, who is no longer with us anymore because of her mental health. It's for my own mental health, even though I might not suffer anything, any mental health, so to speak. But who's to say that doesn't happen in the future? And in the future that I might need support. So that's why I do this awareness, and I raise funds. And I'm on YouTube, I'm not raising any funds, guys. So just to be clear, I'm not raising funds. I'm just talking about the awareness of mental health. I'm raising funds within my family and my friends on my personal Facebook. So yeah, but who's to say that I don't need support in the future? Who's to say that one of my nieces doesn't need support? And God forbid that there's no support. And as we speak, there is hardly any support. If you're in crisis and you need to see a psychiatrist, you have to get on a waiting list, regardless. Even if you've got money to pay, you still have to be on a waiting list, because they are so, there's not many of them. Well, there's lots of them, but they're so filled up that they've got waiting lists. And sure, maybe if you had lots and lots of money, maybe you could, push. But, not too many people can afford those prices, right? So when you get a referral from a doctor, you can get, I think it's six visits for free, but the 6 visits are not really free, they're subsidised. So they say they kind of say, oh yeah, they're 6 for free, but they're not really free, they're subsidised. You've got to pay the first fee is huge. I think it's about $360 to see a psychiatrist first, to get assessed. And that's a longer session. And you have to wait 6 months for that, right? And you're in crisis. And I'm not, I'm sure I'm talking this happens all around the world. I know Miss Paula was just online, so I'm sure this happens in America too. Most countries are suffering with the onslaught of mental health, especially since the pandemic. We've had a lot more people suffer mental health. So, it's getting more and more. So I'm not just talking about my country in Australia, I'm talking about all countries. But obviously I've only got lived experience of living in Australia with, what I've observed for mental health. So yeah, God forbid if I need, support. So, getting to a crisis, in a crisis, and then trying to get hold of a psychiatrist is really hard. So the only other way you can do that, get support, is through helplines. So Beyond Blue have a helpline, and I should talk about Beyond Blue because that's the charity that I'm walking for. So one year, in my team of 8 people, we raised $10,000 for them. So I'm really proud of that. I got one of my friends' businesses to donate some money, and she donated 5,000 Australian dollars, which is about $2,500. And then, individually I raised about $1,000 myself too. So that was a really good year, and I've had a bit more prep time to prep. This year I was a little slack. I only started telling my friends about it and asking for donations about a week ago. And I did that purely because I didn't want to be in people's face too much. At the moment, things are not easy. I think we all know that, life is not easy. Doesn't grow on trees, right? And, I don't want to be asking, money for a month of people, it would just do people's head in. So yeah, I purposely only did it a week out. So I've had 4 donations, so I'm up to $200, which is great. And look, I don't have to raise to $500, but that's what I was trying to aim for. And the cost to actually do these walks is quite hefty. I paid $160, which is about 80 US dollars. So, people say, God, why is that so expensive to do the walk? Well, this company, Coastrek, they have to close off streets. They have to get traffic guards to like for people who are crossing roads and stuff like that. They have paid staff and they have volunteers to man like the start, the end, and they have love stops. So love stops are where there's public toilets, and they have like water stations set up where you can get water, and they have water in cups so that you can just walk past and grab some water. And then they have fruit, and then they have music, and sometimes they have bands. And at the main love stops, they even have massage people and stuff like that. So, and like music, commentators and stuff like that. So they bring the atmosphere, right? So we bring the walking, they bring the atmosphere with the music. So it's a really fun atmosphere. And so I really do think it's worth the $160. And look, some of that money probably does go to the charity too. So, yeah, so I mean, that's the side of Coastrek. And my story on my big why is my friend Esther. So my friend Esther is Malaysian. She was born in Malaysia, and I only knew her when she was in Australia, and she'd married an Australian guy, and she'd brought one of her children out. Now, she was previously married in Malaysia to a Malaysian man, and Malaysia is a very big Muslim country, just like Indonesia, where I'm from, in Indonesia, half from. My mum is not Muslim, though Indonesia is one of the biggest Muslim countries or populations in the world, should I say, with, you know, many mosques around. And I love the call to prayer, okay? And in Malaysia, it's very similar. Malaysia speak Bahasa Malay, and Indonesia, they speak Bahasa Indonesian. And they're very, very similar. So when I travel in Malaysia, I can kind of understand and kind of get by, okay? There's some stories that I definitely couldn't get by, but yeah, I'm not fluent Indonesian at all, but I can understand it when people talk to me. So if someone says hati-hati, like be careful, I know, like, be careful what's going on, like, you know, watch the street or something. So I know some of the basics, right? And more than the basics. But Malay is very similar to Indonesian. And my friend Esther married a Muslim man. She was madly in love, and she was a Christian lady. Her family were Christian, and she thought they could make it work. They had 3 children, and unfortunately they couldn't make it work. Completely different kind of, you know, ethoses in life. And there was a lot of trauma in that marriage, that Esther came away quite traumatized. She never talked about what exactly happened, but put it this way, she had night tremors where she didn't sleep very well. She would scream in her sleep. So obviously, you know, it was something in there that was pretty bad, that she couldn't sleep. She had a mental illness from the trauma in Malaysia, and her family, when she was getting divorced, kind of just said, look, you need to just forget that stuff and move on, you know? And, you know, the reason for that is, in Malaysia, mental health is not recognised. In a lot of Asian countries, mental health is not recognised. Even in Australia, there's a stigma. And the more we talk about mental health, the less of a stigma it is. And that's why I talk about it. And, you know, I know a lot of people that subscribe to me are not Australian. So in your own countries, I will wonder, you know, what's the stigma like in your country? So I know that in India, again, very stigmatized. They just don't talk about mental health. It doesn't exist. So if it doesn't exist, you can't get treatment, right? So she never got treatment in Malaysia. And look, you know, she wasn't horribly bad, mind you, either. She met a guy on the internet who was Australian, who's my friend. Well, he was my friend, but I met him through my friend Esther. She came to Australia, she got married. I met her at a Thai restaurant. So how I get to travel so much is I always have second or third jobs. I'm always hustling. That's how I've been able to pay for trips. And also a backpack. And backpacking is not as expensive as staying 1 week in a resort or a 5-star resort in, you know, like kind of the Hilton kind of thing. You know, I don't go to Paris to stay in the Hilton. I stay in a backpacker's hostel. It cost me 160 Australian dollars to stay in a dorm room with like 8 other people. and share a bathroom. And still that was expensive. Like, it was $360 or something for 2 nights. And then I stayed another 2 nights with a friend who lives in Paris. So yeah, that's the way I get to travel, and how I've been able to travel so much and get to 62 countries, because I hustle. And I also have a second job. Always have a second job. So I met Esther while we were both working at a Thai restaurant. And yeah, I had fun working with her, and I loved her to death. I didn't really know about her mental health until I really got to know her a little bit more deeply out of work, and then understand that she had some trauma back at home in Malaysia, and she was getting some help here in Australia, because there is help if you do ask for it. She was on medication, but she didn't like the medication. She'd go on and off it, different things like that. Okay, she did attempt her life quite a few times. I did talk to her husband quite a few times about it, and he was distraught. He was beside himself a lot of the times. There was times I would pick Esther up when she was a bit crying, and I'd have to take her to the beach and just hug her. I'm not trained in mental health, so I don't know what to do. I've worked around people with mental health, but not into the clinical stuff, just around the outsides of it. Like, for example, my job, most of my life has been to help people get jobs. And one of them has been long-term unemployed people with mental health, and people with disabilities get work. And there's a stat from Australia and New Zealand that with people with mental health, that if you just find them a job, the other stuff will sort out. And look, that is something I get, because if you find someone a job, they can focus on something else other than their mental health. But it still doesn't take away that some people's mental health does need to be actually addressed and looked after, and actually be fixed and looked after. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't just fix mental health. It's a journey. But that's what we say in Australia and New Zealand too. So like, what I'm saying is there is still a stigma. So in my train of my work is, if you like, for example, I was an employment consultant, so to speak. I don't do that anymore. I still work in the employment space, but not in that particular phase. So I'm not trained, as I said, I'm not a trained mental health person, but I work with people to get them jobs. So when people would come to me, it would not be coming to me to talk about their mental health, even though they would come to me and say, hey, look, the thought of getting a job makes me want to vomit, and they would then run away out into the car park and vomit. So that was the kind of scenario sometimes I was working with. So I would have to tread very, not quickly. Like, I'm not just going to force that person. Let's get in the car. Let's go for a job interview now, right? I'm not going to get very far. Plus, she's going to vomit in my car. And that's not great for the person, So, yeah, like, there's, where am I trying to say? That even in my job life, I've dealt with people with mental health. On a personal level, I say that I haven't had mental health, but I've had depression. I've broken up with boyfriends. I've shared a time in my life where I kind of said it was my rock bottom. I'd broken up with a boyfriend after 10 years. We were breaking up a house that, I owned the house with him. So we had to separate the house and the money side of things. That was nasty. There was a dog involved. That was nasty. He just took the dog. And so not only was I having to, deal with breaking up with a guy, I was trying to find a new place to live. There was lawyers involved also. That got really nasty. It wasn't nice. And then on top of that, when I was already falling apart, I got made redundant from my job. So that was my rock bottom, and that was 11 years ago, maybe even 12 years ago now. And yeah, it was a horrible time in my life. And I was using alcohol to numb the pain, as a lot of women do, or men do, should I say. And yeah, there was times I'd wake up the next morning and go, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Like, I was so hungover, and I'd have to ring my friends and have a chat, because I just felt so bad. But anyway, And then fast forward a couple more years, and I did actually have some panic attacks. I found out a friend of mine had died after I'd just been out of service for about 3 days on an island walking. I think I was away for 4 days. And then I came back to the service, area, and my phone just started blowing up. And I found out one of my really good friends had just died. And that just broke my heart. And yeah, after I got home from that holiday, I went to the bathroom. I know too much information. I'm just doing a number one, okay, guys, number one. And I felt like the walls were coming in on me. And I've never had a panic attack or anxiety before, so I had no idea what was going on. So I'm on the toilet. I'm like, what the hell is going on? The walls are coming in on me. I don't feel good. This is a really weird feeling. What is wrong with me? I'm stressing. I ring my partner. I'm like, where are you? And he goes, oh, I'm like so-and-so. I said, can you just come home? Because I don't feel good. He's like, what's wrong? I said, I don't know. Like, the walls are coming in. He goes, oh, come on. You're just dehydrated from all the walking you've done. So he's coming back with a Gatorade for me, right? I just said, just hurry up and come back. And I effectively spent the next couple of hours trying to calm myself down for I don't know what. And then I said, hey, can you take me to like emergency, because I don't feel good. I already had high blood pressure that I was taking 2 tablets for, so I was a bit worried that my heart rate was going blah, 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 blah. So I thought, okay, this is anxiety, but as I said, I'd never suffered it before, so I didn't know, and I had no idea that I was having a panic attack either. So when I got to the hospital, they put me on, they monitor you because they want to make sure that you're not having a heart attack. And they said, look, your blood pressure's high, but we actually think you're having a panic attack, because I told them about why I thought it was brought on because of my friend dying. And they said, yeah, this is very much a kind of like a phantom, like, you are having like, your blood pressure's high, but you are actually having a panic attack. And they said, look, we just need to let you just chill for a little bit and realize that you are safe. You're not having a heart attack, you're not having a stroke or anything like that. This is just a big shock from a big walk you've had, a big physical, exertion on your body, and then to get that news. And they said you probably need to go see your doctor and get some, some anxiety tablets. So if this happens again, you can take these tablets. So I was prescribed the tablets. I've never taken the tablets, but I have had a couple more doses, no more than 2 or 3. But I actually had a dose of anxiety over the weekend. And, here I've been doing lives for the last month while I've been walking and training on the beach. And the training hasn't been that physical for me. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm pretty fit. And walking on the sand is a little bit more physical because you're using different muscles. So the walk I'm doing is walking on sand. It's a 30-kilometre walk, but 17 of them are on sand. Normally it's the whole lot's on sand. But because they're doing a completely different route this year than we normally do, I've done this walk a couple of times already, they're doing a completely different route. 17 of them are on sand, the rest 13 of them is on land, on land, on bitumen, or paths. So anyway, so I've been training heavily, but the golden rule when you're training is to have electrolytes. And I didn't have electrolytes on one day of those trainings, except for my last Saturday. So last Friday, I ended up doing a mega day. I didn't even realise, but I did like 3 hours in the morning on a live walking because I was so excited because I got 500 subscribers and I was excited. I was sidetracked. I didn't realise I didn't even eat breakfast that morning. So I haven't been eating breakfast before I go on these walks. And then when you haven't been eating breakfast, your body's, eating away all the, the fat and all the stuff in your body kind of thing, and taking away good nutrients because it's needing nutrients to run your body. And if you're drinking a lot of water, or water in general, and you're not having electrolytes, it's also taking a lot of minerals out of your body. So, yeah, I have drained my body of minerals. So, I did 19.5 Ks that day. I had no idea. The Saturday morning, I didn't feel great, but I didn't feel bad. I had a nice morning rest, and then I was like, right, I'm going to walk 15 kilometres today in one go. But I need to take electrolytes and I need to take salts. I need to have snacks. I need to have a good breakfast. Obviously, I'd ruled from the 2 weeks of already training without the minerals and properly eating. Even I eat well at night time and lunches and all the stuff, but if you're not having snacks while you're doing long walks, you're not getting the right protein in your body, and then your body's attacking other things. So when I finished that 15k walk, again, the 15k walk wasn't drama for me. It was fine. I did the live and I was fine. But when I finished the live and when I got home, I just didn't feel good. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know this feeling. This is anxiety again. Like, what the hell? So I was like, shit. I had, this is my fault. I had, I know I've got working knowledge of what I should do. When I go hiking, I take electrolytes. Actually, I'm going to have some water as we speak. Now, I've got a cup of tea next to me because I love a cup of tea, but I'm actually thinking I'm not going to have the cup of tea because a cup of tea has lots of caffeine in it, and it does actually drain your, it depletes your body because of the, what do they call it? Not carbonation, dehydrates. The caffeine in it. I love black tea, right? In most mornings I can have a couple of black teas. So that dehydrates your body too, right? So if you are doing lots of walking, you should be putting salts back into your body. Like sea salt is really good. So I've got some sea salt with me. And I've also got quite a few sachets of electrolytes. I've got one bottle of electrolytes that I carry with me that's got water in it already. And then I've got a backpack. I've got a Camel. I don't know if you know what that is. Like, it's a hydration bladder, so that I can easily get water. So that's got no electrolytes in it. It's hard to clean when you put electrolytes in those Camels. Just saying, I've done that before and I learned my lesson. So then I carry a separate bottle with electrolytes in it. So yeah, so that's how I kind of manage my electrolytes now. So yeah, I had anxiety over the weekend, but I recognised it and I just looked after myself. Sunday I had a really nice rest day. It was a really good, do all the things that are really good for you, like a love day. Massage, lots of things. So, it's interesting, I've been talking on the beach, and I don't know if you've joined one of my lives. I openly talk about mental health, about my friends' mental health, and people do talk about their own mental health in the chat. It's a safe space, and I say, I'm not registered to, I'm not here to counsel. That's not my job. But it's a safe place, so I just wanted to bring awareness to it. And if people want to share, that's great. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey on the live. So I've had some really nice connections on the live. Like when you just have a YouTube and you do uploads and videos and that kind of thing, you're only communicating people in the chat, on the post chats, the chats, the comments, right? And there's only so much of a conversation you can have in comments, right? You can get to know people. Like, for example, I've got to know quite a few of my mates, and I never did a live with them. Like, for example, Jordan from Homestead Made Easy. He's from Florida. Izzy from Izzy's Experience. She's in America. Tracy from Life in the Wild West. Jazz from Jazz Nomad TV. I met all those people just in the chat, and we got such a relationship going in the chat that I've actually sent them postcards on my travels. So, and even for example, Jordan sent me a postcard from Florida, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I feel very, very lucky that I was able to connect with people just in the chat. But when you start doing lives, I've noticed you're able to communicate with people a lot more. So yeah, I've been doing lives to take people on the journey. I just thought, while I want to concentrate on training, I don't have time to do any uploads. And you know what they say about YouTube, you've got to be consistent. Well, I haven't uploaded a video in a month, as in like a long form video, because that's what I'm here for, long form videos. I have done some shorts, but not huge lots. I've done some posts, but I thought, okay, if I do lives, I'm still putting out some content, and I can share a little bit more about myself personally and about, you know, the journey of this walk. So that's why I did the walk, and that's why I did the lives. But the lives have kind of taken on a completely different world of their own, and I'm there for it. Like, I really have enjoyed it. Sometimes it can be a lot, I'll say, because like there's kind of a few people on the chat. So it's interesting, right? Like, I don't know how big subscribers. So I'm just having some hydrolytes as we speak, actually. So I just pulled out my hydrolyte bottle. That's got my, I think I've got like a raspberry electrolyte in it. It smells so good. So even though I'm not walking right this minute, I'm just driving and talking, I'm still putting electrolytes in my body because I'm getting my body ready. I have got a banh mi with me that's ready to eat. Banh mi is a Vietnamese kind of roll. So tasty. I was going to have it for my lunch, but I thought I'd have that for breakfast. So when I finish this live, I'm going to eat that. And I've made I've made like chicken wrap with a bit of salad and stuff in it. I've made salt and pepper on it with avo. It's so yummy. The little bite-sized ones, like 2 or 3 bites and they're gone. So I've made 4 of those. So I'll carry one with me. And then at Love Stops, we have a support person, Lisa, who normally does the walk with us, but she's just not up for walking this year. She's thrown her daughter in the deep end to do it. She's going to be at the Love Stops, so she's going to carry all our extra things. So, like, for example, extra clothes, because they say that it might rain today. So, you know, that's not great. So I've got a spare pair of shoes, socks, whole outfit, more jumpers, all my food, esky, all that kind of stuff, extra water, even though there's water there, but, you know, it's just nice to have your own water so you don't have to stress about, you know, getting water. So that's all going to be carried with her, so I don't have to carry extra things like sunscreen. I just put the sunscreen on in the morning, and then at the Love Stops I can put sunscreen on if I need it, right? I will carry my raincoat. So in my backpack I have snacks. I have like a python, which is a sugar lolly thing. I've got some red snakes full of sugar, but I don't have the whole packet. I've got the whole packet at the Love Stop, but I just take 2 or 3 with me in a little sandwich bag. I've got some licorice as snacks. I've got a muesli bar. I've got some Panadol with me, just in case, you know, don't feel good. I've got some stuff for blisters, just in case I get a blister. I've got my raincoat with me. I've got my camel full, like it's a 3-litre camel full that you can fill with water, but I've only got 1 litre of water in it because I don't have to carry that much water, as in I can keep filling it up. And then I've got 1 little bottle of my electrolytes. So I've got electrolytes and the normal water. I've got my phone, I've got a battery charger, because if I'm going to do lives and I do lots of videos, take videos, you know, I want to have, you know, battery. So I've got that. I've actually got 2 battery packs. So I'll have 1 at the Love Stop and 1 on my person. The chargers. So yeah, I'm prepared, guys. I've got hat. Hat's very important. So what am I wearing? I'm just wearing my normal shoes that I've been walking with, that I've trained with. I'm wearing the socks that I know are good, because there was one day I wore these socks and I started getting sand in them and it was really gross. So I was like, mental note, don't wear those socks. So that's why you train before. That way you know what clothes to wear and not what to wear. I have got a jumper on at the moment, like a sweater kind of thing. But I think I'm going to take that off when we start, and I'm just going to wear my raincoat, even though it won't be raining, but just as warmth, because when we start walking at 7 o'clock in the morning, it will be cold. It says it's 14 degrees at the moment. But it'll probably be about 18 when we start walking. yeah, I think I've got it. I think I've covered it. Obviously, I'm not looking at the chat, guys. I don't even know if there's anyone even listening. I don't even know if this chat has even started submitting. Like, I know Miss Paula was there originally. And look, I'm just doing this as a podcast, so to speak, because I know some people will listen and they might not watch the lives. I get that, because it's very annoying, like, you know, just looking at my ceiling basically and me driving along and my beeping. So I think I've covered it. My why is personal, Esther. I'll just end it on one more thing. So it's really deeply personal about Esther, because when I got the phone call that she tried to take her life, I did not believe it. I couldn't believe it, because she'd threatened so many times and she'd tried so many times and it never worked. You know, it never happened. So please don't be listen to this if you're triggered. I should probably write a warning on that. And so she was in hospital. It was a Monday morning. And so I thought, because she's in hospital, that there's hope, right? That they're keeping her alive because, you know, they hope that she might come out of this coma that they put her in. But the reality was, that I just probably didn't want to listen to, was that she was brain dead. So by the Wednesday or Thursday, my friend's husband, Mark, rang me and said, hey, they're going to turn the machine off. They're going to turn it off on Saturday lunchtime. So if you want to come and say goodbye, you're welcome to. And I said, okay. He goes, I've put your name at the, you know, reception kind of thing. I really didn't know if I wanted to go, because I have this thing about, you know, you should experience, you know, love people when they're alive, but once they're, you know, passed, it's not them anymore. So, like, for example, when my father passed away, he said to me, before he passed away, he said, hey, I do not want an open casket at all. Do not let that happen. And do not see me. He goes, once I've passed, I've passed. I'm no longer that person. Just remember me for, you know, who I am. And I've just remembered that when he said that. I was there the morning he passed. He was in the house. But after he was taken away, I never saw him. My mum did, and I pleaded with her not to see him, because I said that was Dad's wishes. But in my mum's culture, she needed to see him. So I just kind of remembered that, you know, I want to remember Esther as she is. She's this beautiful soul, right? That's why I loved her. That's why we're friends. But I did go. I felt like her family were in Malaysia and they couldn't come and say goodbye. And I was here, and I was going to put my big pants on. Even though I was scared and I didn't want to, I went in respect for her family, because they wouldn't been able to say goodbye. Maybe it was a silly thing to do, but I did go to say goodbye. I got Diego to come with me because I was worried about, you know, seeing her. And so I went there to the hospital. I kissed her, I hugged her, I held her hand. I said goodbye. It was very sad, because she just looked like she was asleep. And I don't wish that on anyone. And that's why I do this. And I know that a lot of people, I'm not alone. A lot of people have had to do that by their own family, friends. So I know I'm not special, as in, like, you know, I'm not telling you something that is foreign to most of you listening to this. I'm just sharing you my experience. And that's my why. Because I don't want that to happen to another one of my friends or family. My nieces, I've got 2 nieces. I don't want to talk about my nieces in this. But, you know, there are people close to my life that are suffering mental health. Yeah. And I would never want that to happen to them. And I know I can't stop it physically. And I know that, you know, even just by doing these lives and these chats and raising awareness and raising funds, I know it might not fix the problem, but I can't just do nothing. So that's why I do these things. And I just say that, you know, if you have the ability to do these challenges or donate to your local mental health providers, do it. Or, you know, help them raise funds. Do those kind of things. That's why I do these walks. I do squat challenges. There's a couple of different things coming up in the next coming months that I'll be doing. And yes, I'll do a live and I'll talk about it. There was a video I did, I think it was in November last year. It was called Walking for Purpose. It was in Taiwan. So if you look at my Taiwan playlist, there will be Walking with Purpose, and that is a walk I did for Esther. In Australia, there's a walk called I can't remember the name off the top of my head. They're an association that raise funds and support for people with mental health, and it's a day to remember the people that we've lost. And I've done it for the last couple of years, and last year I was away because I was in Taiwan. So instead of doing the 9 kilometers that I would normally do in a lake in Taiwan, it was a beautiful lake, and I talked about Esther's story. I showed pictures of Esther because I just wanted to show her beauty. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're ugly, you know, I'm not saying about that. I'm saying you could be anyone, you know, and suffer mental health. But I just wanted to show the person she was, so that you could, like, sometimes when you see a picture of someone, you can identify with them a little bit more. Because I talk about her a lot, okay? And I do that because she hasn't got a voice anymore. And the worst part of this is that her mental health wasn't recognised in her country, by her family even, but her family have chosen to tell that she passed away from a brain aneurysm. That is why Esther is not alive anymore, because she had a brain aneurysm. So that is what they tell everyone. So even in her death, the truth is not out, and that hurts me even more. So anyway, guys, I'm going to finish this live. I don't know if anyone's listening, and if you are listening, excellent, thank you very much. And I don't blame you for not listening, because that was a long one. It was only, probably 30 minutes. But look, I just want to appreciate that everyone that has joined my lives, that's walked along with me. You've been part of the journey. I could name you all, but I don't want to miss anyone out, okay? You know who you are, okay? You definitely know who you are, because you've been on the journey. And there's been many of you guys, and you've all made friends, which is lovely. I love that. So guys, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you out there. So drop in on the lives, or just my reruns, okay? Bye.